Hey guys, so I am sitting in this gorgeous apartment and I just arrived in Greece yesterday, and I thought that it would be a good time to address a question that a lot of you guys have asked me, like on Instagram, and that is, what do vegans eat when they travel, or like what should vegans do? And yeah, a lot of things depends on like where you're traveling, because some countries, a lot of them in Asia, vegan food or vegan restaurants can really be non-existent. And of course it really depends on, are you traveling to a metropolitan area, because usually there's more options there. If you're on the seaside of an old village, that can be increasingly hard. So a lot of it is about really like doing your homework, doing your research early, and then maybe like bringing in some stuff from home to really supplement everything. Yeah, so I thought that I would kind of go through what I do with you guys, and what really makes sense is to just go through breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then of course snacks as well, and then what I do for really each one of them. Okay, so first things first is kind of like a background and a questionnaire. Number one is really, how vegan do you want to stay? Like, I assume that most of you guys are vegan, you know, 100% of the time when you're not traveling. But I'll say that when I travel, because I deal and I work with a lot of food and I do recipe developing, I do try to, like, if I'm going to a place like Greece for a week, you know, the first 2 days, I will try nearly everything. You know, I will do some research at home as to, you know, what is the famous dishes of the area, because sometimes, you know, you might get sick if you try everything, but usually I like to kind of get some of the famous dishes out of the way, and then in general, just to get a really good feel for the flavors of the region. That's really, you know, important for me, and I do travel for food just because that's really important as to, you know, when I'm coming up with vegan recipes. But I do recognize that a lot of people, you know, they don't travel for food. They travel specifically to go to a region and then, you know, to visit the different sites there. So that's kind of number one, like how lenient do you want to be? And so from there, you can gauge as to, okay, breakfast, lunch, dinner, what should you be doing? And then kind of like how extreme in preparation you guys actually need to be. Okay, so before we get to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, let's get kind of the basics out of the way first. So it is true that to, you know, stay vegan or to stay in your particular diet, you do have to do a bit of preparation and a bit of research first. So the number one thing that I recommend is to really try and get a place with a kitchen. It doesn't really need to be as fancy as this, but I would say like at least a microwave, but it would be better that you are able to, you know, have a stove and that you can cook some things yourself. Really, when you get into any place, you can always go to the, you know, local grocery store, grab yourself a pack of like rice and beans, and then, you know, supplement it with vegetables, and you really have a lot of your meals out of the way. You can just, you know, you can basically sort of eat that all the time. Number two goes with number one, and that's access to a grocery store. So when you guys are planning as to where you're staying, make sure to look up ahead of time, okay, where is the local grocery store there? Where can I pick up some of these like basic staples so that I can have and I can make some vegan food at home? Or for bringing things like snacks and nuts and bars and whatnot. So that's always going to be, you know, very helpful along the way, is to kind of, you know, DIY your own food as opposed to having to rely on, you know, like the restaurants around you that, you know, may or may not be existent. Number three is a site actually called Happy Cow. They will list out actually the vegan and the vegetarian restaurants in your area. And for me, I use that site a lot just to, you know, just to find out about some of the vegan or vegetarian places that I should visit, that, you know, they have ratings there as well. So it's good to kind of check that site out to see, you know, is it an option of whether you can eat out or not. You know, beyond Happy Cow, go online and check Yelp or check, you know, whatever the local review sites are, just to see if there is like a vegan or a vegetarian stall, because it is becoming more and more mainstream to have less meat. And even, you know, for a place like Athens, which I would think would be, you know, uber traditional, they actually have a lot of vegan and vegetarian places available as well. And you know, for a lot of places like Asia, they might not exactly list out that it's vegan or vegetarian, but there's a lot of like temple food, places where, you know, like Buddhists may eat. So that's always going to be an option in Asia. The last thing here in the basics is really to prepare when you're back home. So buy some snacks, buy some ready-made things. Like I had talked about this last time, but like packets of miso soup. So all you do is you bring these packets along and all you need is some hot water. Just have things that are instant and just, you know, really make with water. And then like the other thing that I also recommend sometimes is to bring your own TVP. So TVP is super convenient because it's, you know, it's in small pieces. You can stick it into a Ziploc plastic bag. It doesn't take up a lot of room. And what you do is you mix a TVP with like flavorings, like some spices that you want. Could be like taco seasonings, which I absolutely love. And then what you do is, whether you're in a kitchen like this or you're out in a restaurant, is again, you ask for either a cup of boiling water or a cup of water. You rehydrate it for a couple of seconds and you sort of, you order the salad or you order the pasta. Everybody's gonna have that, or, you know, plain rice. Everybody's gonna have that, and you can just like, you know, kind of put your TVP over it. I'm not sure if you're gonna be too popular at the restaurant, but you know, you can order other stuff like drinks and whatnot to kind of supplement so that, you know, it doesn't look too badly. And then that's really the other biggie, is to just plan from home, bring stuff from home that's not too like weighty and that's not too clunky, and that you can, you know, really prepare in an instant. Okay, so let's talk about what I do. So no matter what, I always buy a bag of spinach, or I always buy a bag of greens from the local grocery store when I go to any country. So, you know, if you travel often, you know that whenever you know, vacation at a place, you know that after you've been on vacation for a week, usually what happens towards the end of that week? It's usually that you're, you know, super full, you're super bloated all the time. Just because when you travel, you have a tendency to eat out a lot, right? Like a lot of people, they don't have kitchens, they don't cook themselves. And so, you know, in restaurants, usually they don't really serve things like a lot of vegetables. It's usually like just meats and carbs and cheese and, you know, just like the heavy stuff that in general people, you know, people like to eat. And so at the end of that week, you end up just feeling so gross, and everybody's like, oh, I need to go on a diet when I get home. And my thing is like, well, okay, you don't really need to feel that way. And a lot of it for me is just having my vegetables, like my vegetables in the morning or like midday or towards the end of the day. And then, you know, that's really just to feel like less bloated and constipated and everything. And that's because you're not having enough vegetables. So no matter what, I grab a bag of spinach or I grab a bag of light greens. Specifically with spinach, it's very lightweight, so I can always stick it into my backpack with me, and then, you know, anytime I need to have some vegetables or I feel like I'm eating things that are too heavy, I can just grab that out of the bag. Yeah, for me, this having like a bag of vegetables and eating them along the days of your trip is probably number one for me, in terms of just like staying, not even staying vegan, but just staying healthy feeling. Okay, so number one, let's talk about breakfast. So surprisingly, I find that breakfast when you're traveling abroad is one of the hardest meals to find vegan. And you wouldn't necessarily think of it, but usually, especially like in the Western world, breakfasts are pretty much the same everywhere. It's kind of like bread, butter, you know, you have your croissants, you have your eggs. It's just, usually it's vegetarian, but it is very hard to find vegan. And so for me, I always bring along protein shake packs. Like the Vega one is a really good one. Or if you don't have it in the individual packages, I usually bring like little Ziploc bags, and I will just, you know, measure or pre-measure out 5 days worth of meals, and then that will be what I will have in the morning. And specifically, you know, you kind of want a good shake that includes, you know, like a lot of fiber and some of the vegetables mixed in. And also a lot of like good vitamins, just because when you travel, usually you don't get a lot of that, right? You eat whatever is available as you're traveling, and so you kind of become, you know, like bloated, but also like vitamin deficient. So it's really good while I'm in the apartment or in the hotel room, in a controlled setting, to be able to get a lot of the nutrients that I would need for the day. Other than for the protein shake, you can certainly supplement it with, like a banana or an apple or a granola bar that you've bought from, the grocery market. I just like to take care of the important stuff, like the vitamins and the vegetables, at the beginning of the day when I can actually control it. And then, as the day goes on, when I'm not, then, at least I know that, I started off on the right foot and I have, the vitamins and the nutrients that I would need for the day taken care of during breakfast time. Okay, so let's talk about lunch. Lunch is usually midday. You're probably out already touring. So what I recommend for lunch is, one, again, check that Happy Cow site or whatever you've researched so that you can kind of place potential like vegan or vegetarian restaurants next to where you're traveling. So sometimes obviously that's not always going to be the case. So what I actually recommend is to bring a Tupperware box from home, and then if you had happened to cook, rice and beans in the morning or rice and beans the following night, it's good to just have a small disposable Tupperware and to really pack your lunch. That way you can really ensure that you have what you need or what you like in it without having to kind of like sacrifice and to, eat something that may not be vegan or might not be too healthy along the way. I talked about these before, but like the miso packets or the TVP that's just been, the dry TVP that's been mixed with some seasonings, you can always add that to a salad or, to a base or to a pasta. So that's kind of another good option if you don't want to bring, like a full out Tupperware with you guys. Lunchtime for me is when I am also like the most hungry because, it's in the middle of your day and you're trucking along. So if you don't pre-prepare that way and there happens to not be, vegan options available, then you're kind of left to eating, really whatever is on the street. And again, that could be non-vegan, that could be non-vegetarian. It's not necessarily like that great for you and you end up feeling kind of like bloated and heavy and tired, and you might not be able to proceed along with your trip, the way that you want, because there's still going to be a lot of trekking to do. Which kind of is the reason why I go back to breakfast and starting it off right and make sure that you have everything, because sometimes, during the day as you're traveling, sometimes there's really nothing that you can do, right? So you eat what you can. Sometimes it's just like a piece of bread or like some French fries along the way. If you happen to be vegan, that's usually, what you'll end up finding. Some French fries, and then maybe like, if you're lucky, some like lettuce, like a lettuce and a tomato. Okay, so after lunch, let's talk about my favorite things. Those are gonna be snacks. So I am hungry all the time, especially while I'm walking around. Like I'm just munching on things all the time. And so when you don't prepare, obviously you end up with things like you're eating chips and crisps all the time. What I generally do is either in the grocery store or back at home, I'll bring things like almonds and then also like a lot of these little granola bars with me. Some other ideas like dried fruit is always really easy to bring, kind of like when you're going trekking or whatnot. Also a lot of water, because drinking water kind of prevents you from feeling too hungry, so that at least that may hold you over to, until lunchtime, or that may hold you over until dinner time, which, is always a good thing to stay hydrated. And it's really just about coming with prepared, like healthier options. Like I'm not saying, definitely like when you travel, go and try out the street food if you're open to it, or like, try out something that's, a little bit more naughty. It's not really that you have to stick to these certain things. It's just like, if you don't want to be eating, too much of the junk food or whatnot, there's always the options of like almonds and carrot sticks and whatnot. Something that's easy to bring along that doesn't go bad, quickly. Okay, so dinner time. This is usually the time that, most people want to be out and want to be at a restaurant. And again, you do have to do your homework early. So check online sites, check Yelp, see what is available in your area where you're touring. So in the case where there's not a lot of restaurants near you, I always actually recommend going to, if there's an Indian restaurant nearby, they are usually almost always able to make something vegan, and because a majority of their stuff is vegetarian. So just, ordering a bowl of dal and some rice, that's going to be a really good meal for you guys. And then also, obviously not all of the restaurants are going to be labeled vegan or vegetarian, but if you go to a place, check out their salad menu, check out their pasta menu, see if there are things that you can basically ask the waiter to just sub out. Say like, I just want plain this, I just want plain that. Make sure to ask about, can you do it dairy free? Can you just, leave out the egg? For the most part, I would say, if you're in a very touristy area, they are usually pretty okay with just making that substitution for you. And, so many people have allergies these days, so I feel like, even if it's like a very old establishment where you don't want to be offensive and, ask people to, like, oh, can you, not include this and not include that? I know that some people don't feel comfortable doing that, and I don't always feel comfortable either. But, I also know that there's a lot of people with allergies these days. So I feel like if you ask it in a nice way, usually people are going to be okay with it, and you may be able to find, again, things that you can just sub out or just ask for, plain pasta with vegetables or with mushrooms, and then, whatever you bring from home, like if you brought beans from home, if you brought TVP from home, you can just kind of like sprinkle that on top. Vegan jerky is another nice one as well. Usually it'll be like made from mushrooms or soy or something, and again, you can travel with it. It doesn't spoil, it's super light, and you can kind of sprinkle it over salad or over rice or something to supplement. And obviously you can always cook in your Airbnb or in your hotel. That is why you did your homework and you chose the one with the kitchen. So again, like rice and beans is the most normal, but pasta with pasta sauce. Adding in a little bit of beans, adding in a little bit of vegetables, some olive oil, some olives, you get yourself a really nice thing going. And usually in any country you can always find yourself some bread. So, having that and having toast in the morning, making a little bit of a sandwich at night. The stuff that you can find at the supermarket is always going to be fairly economical. It's going to be fairly easy to cook as well. So that's kind of like the things that I always keep in mind. And same thing for lunch. If you made dinner the day before, you can always pack it into a Tupperware and then obviously bring it with you. And if you can find a nice square to sit at, you can kind of have dinner outside as well, if you guys are okay with that. I actually don't I don't think that most people mind at all, just because there's tourists all around. And yeah, so that's basically my tips for when you're vegan and when you're traveling. And obviously no plan is really perfect, and when you're traveling along the way, a lot of the times it's just whatever is available. So make sure that you guys are open to trying new things as well, but a little bit of preparation can definitely bring you a long way. So I hope that this was fairly helpful for any of you guys looking to travel, and yeah, I guess I will see you guys again soon. Bye.